This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, I'm here with my only friends. And my boy Hunt is in the motherfucking building today. What is poppin', Hunt?
Connie, I got the intro instead of Tortuga this time.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes we're trying some things out.
Switching it up a little bit.
Landon's not here to really fully piss somebody off, so like I don't really care to do it that much.
Okay,
It's only a halfie with the champ over here.
All right.
Champ's here.
We gotta get you some theme music.
I need to win a bracelet so I can keep this champ rolling.
Yeah, real champ.
Yeah, this shit's changing so quick. You hear this, right? Yesterday he was talking about like, I'm probably not going to play that much. Now he's talking about, I need to win a bracelet.
I could do both of those things.
No, you can't.
I could not play that much and win a
still-
bracelet.
That's not real life.
Yes, it's hard
But
though.
the thing is, there's still like 2 weeks left before WSOP for you to lose a bunch of hands and then be like, oh, that's fucking tournaments. I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, losing hands in cash doesn't feel all that bad. It really doesn't. It's just like you're going to get another hand. And if you win it, you'll make money. If you lose hands in tournaments, they send you home.
True.
It's such a deflating. Honestly, I think it's an ego thing. Like, I don't want to be told when I have to stop gambling.
They send you to a long line.
It's the summer, man. Yeah, I was gonna say it's the summer. There's always something else to play. If you bust, you can just jump into something else.
I know that.
You never have to go home,
Nope.
right, Conrad?
Nope. Actually, you have to go home after 11:45.
You don't have to go
Yeah.
home, but you
It's
can't
true.
stay.
11:45. You have to go home.
Exactly. Yep.
Conrad, I feel like you should have like a rule for yourself where you're not allowed to play events where first place is less than X.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Or more than 4 different tournaments in one day.
Yeah,
I'd be good
Does
too.
Connie play any tournaments already where first place is like less than 100K?
Bro,
I
what
play-
are you talking
I
about?
play
He'll max like reg
everything.
the Orleans daily if he doesn't have anything else
Okay,
to play.
I didn't know about this. What the hell are you doing?
I don't get me wrong. I mean, you know.
Why would anyone ever play a daily?
He played
they
like
pay me.
97 tournaments last year.
Like 30%
It was
rate or
72.
something?
Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes you just gotta get out there.
No, you don't.
Well, actually, this year we're actually all saved. I want to let you guys know. From what I heard, the Wynn is running a nightly 1100 every single fucking night.
Wow.
So we're all saved.
Why is that? How is that saved? That is not a good thing.
Huh?
Why is that a good thing?
Cause now I
Who's
don't,
that
have
a
to,
good
I
thing
don't have to
for?
play a $230 daily. Now I can go play the 1100.
That is pretty good.
Yeah,
It's
like
fucking
fair-
great.
fair
I don't know
enough.
what you're talking about.
I do-
love these things.
If I do recall, they were running like 1100 dailies of sort last year, and
Yeah.
they were single day events, right?
Yeah,
And
they
were
run a
big.
lot of single days outside of the, like, every time they have a day where they don't have like a bigger event going on, they just put a single day on.
It's honestly pretty smart, man. Like
It's
they were getting like
genius.
120K to first
Yeah,
for a
it's
single day 1K turbo.
Yeah, I'm going to
amazing.
play those if I have days where I'm not doing anything else for sure.
For some reason, I feel like they're starting at like 6 or 7 with these 1100s. These nighttime things.
Yeah.
I think it's a nighttime thing. But yeah.
It's the down bad. I busted everything else in town. I'm waiting until 6 p.m.
Do you know
and then
how
I'm gonna
sick
play
you
something
have
else.
to be to like?
Yo, listen, you're not gonna fucking call me out. I'm sitting right here, bro.
I'm just saying, like, you know, I don't want to have. Look, if you're gonna play them, you need to win them because I don't want to have a 10 a.m. podcast where you haven't slept yet and you don't have any wins to demonstrate
That's
from the
true.
day before.
I could
Talking
for
about Conrad having just like got 9th place at 9 a.m. and then going straight into a podcast. That'd be entertaining as
I
fuck.
agree. I agree with
I'll
that.
be kind of miserable, but it'll be fun.
It's like when he showed up in the Bahamas, like hungover.
Oh, that was great.
Still
Like,
drunk.
I don't know what you guys
All
talking
All
about.
disheveled.
You thought you lost the keys to the
Yeah.
car.
Oh, it was great.
That part was
I'm
funny.
here.
That shit was fucking
We're
great.
like, sorry guys, we're here without Conrad, and then all of a sudden you just see him running from across the tournament area.
This huge room and Conrad's
Yeah.
on the far side of it. He's like sprinting over to us.
Him thinking that like the car keys were lost forever, not realizing that like he never
Like,
had
no,
the
yeah.
keys.
You never
Well, I
had
did.
your keys.
I passed them off.
Sure.
Passed him up
You
at
gave him the
10:30.
Kilbane or something,
Yeah.
right?
10:30.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was like 3 a.m. It was 10:30. You didn't remember.
Well, no, it's 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was drunk. We're in the Bahamas. What do you mean? I was drinking tequila. I don't do that shit.
Yep. Yeah.
I was done for. There was no memory of keys. When I checked my pockets and they weren't in there, I was like,
Well, I guess I must have lost them.
Yeah. Maybe stick to light beer.
Hell.
Ew.
Oh, I drink Bud Light. Cool.
There you go.
Are you making any bracelet bets?
Oh no, you offering me something?
No, I offered you 35 to 1.
Somebody's definitely got to think of I'm like 100 to 1.
100 to 1?
I don't know. I'm trying to get some sucker out there.
I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe 100 to 1's fair.
It is, you see?
1% seems hard. I don't know, man. I hope no one offers me any bracelet bets, but I'm in the market.
Here we go. Here we go.
I'm in the market. I'm just saying,
You're like, oh, please, nobody offer me any bracelet bets. I definitely don't want bracelet bets.
He wants the motivation to play. He wants to play, but he doesn't want to play, so he needs the motivation.
He's been looking for a bracelet bet for fucking 3.5 years, okay?
It's crazy that I can't get one. I'm not good at tournament play. But yeah, it really is the difference between like if I have a bracelet bet, then I have to play this stupid fucking $300 Gigaflight whatever.
Yeah.
That honestly,
called the Gladiator.
It's rightfully called the Gladiator. You have to be a fucking warrior to enter that thing.
I got 4 bullets on the schedule.
Of course you do.
Yeah, let's go. It's a great tournament, man.
Yeah, I mean, I want nothing to do with it. I'll be nowhere near.
$300.
Nowhere near.
Get in there, fire away.
Nowhere near the horseshoe.
Build up a stack.
Unless someone gives me a little bit of a bracelet bet offer.
Some part of you deep inside wants to just grind tournaments this summer. That's why you're talking about bracelet bets.
Right.
No, I'm a masochist. I want the pain.
I beat out 75,372 people to win a bracelet.
And it only took you 17 bullets?
No.
Yeah, I've seen you fire like 6 bullets at a 5K or something. How many bullets are you going to fire at a 300 if you have to play it? That's going to be.
Is it I don't
Maybe
know if it's
only
unlimited.
one. Maybe only one.
It might be unlimited.
Last year,
3 million.
Last year, the 500 down bad invitational. I only put 2 bullets into that one. I cashed them both.
Wow.
I got through on one too, I think. It was a beautiful
Well, I
thing.
didn't get through, but I cashed them both.
Oh, no, fuck, you're right. I didn't get through either.
I busted at like 4 a.m. and 2 a.m.
Yeah, you have like the worst case scenario where like you play a long day 1, you cash, then you bust at the end of day 1, have to come back the next day, cash again, bust again at 3 a.m. Like,
Exhausting.
absolutely terrible.
The 300 you can re-enter twice, and there's 4 flights, so 12
12 bullets.
12
is the max.
bullets. Yeah.
Okay.
Same as the old Colossus.
Yeah.
Remember when Jai put in all 12 bullets?
That's right. Yeah.
I don't even understand how someone can bust the tournament 12 times.
That was one of the best scenes of the Results May Vary vlog, where they're interviewing Jordan, and he goes, so you played it 12 times? He's like, yeah. He's like, and I busted. He goes, no, you went bust, 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 bust. It's like, right.
That's good.
That's amazing.
For anybody who hasn't seen that, head over to our playlist. There's the Result May Vary vlog. Fantastic. One of the best things I think we have.
We
done.
need to.
that is
I think we need to
super
like promote that like the next week or so, and tweet it out, get it out there because it is
A little throwback.
Yeah, and it was so good, and not enough people saw it.
Yeah, Hunt made a deep run. He got second place that year.
We had a whole episode that was like dedicated to my deep run. It was kind of fun.
Right.
Well, you were the
really
only
fun.
one who did anything that summer.
I did have the big beard going. I don't
Yeah,
wanna
you
go
look
back
like
to
a
that,
badass.
Times were so good back then that I had a big piece of Hunt whenever he was at that final table. And the whole time I was texting with him and the crew saying like, all right, I'm going to come over and sweat. But I was in a 3-6-12 game in Ivy's room.
Jesus.
And I just couldn't leave. But I was like strongly considering because I was like, I need to go over and show them support. But also like games really fucked me.
I didn't know this.
6-12.
If you just said I'm in a really good game, I would have been like, it's fine, just stay there. Like
Yeah.
I would have understood.
I managed to make it over there right as you were busting second.
Yeah, I remember like I was texting you like I just got second and you were like in the car on the way
Yeah,
over.
I was like, there's no way I'm missing the winner's photo. Like, I have to at least be there for that. Somehow, some way I'm getting in one of these fucking winner's photos.
yeah, we didn't get the win, but
Unlucky.
we will this time. We will next time.
That's right.
Yo, Hunt looked like a fucking character straight out of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah. He looked like
really
a man
did.
who was going to win a turbo tournament.
Yeah, that was the plan, but
His
it
beautiful
didn't quite go to plan.
sunglasses.
It didn't quite go to plan.
Yep.
But this year we're gonna do better.
Do you have other final tables at the WSP? Is that your only one?
Not live. I have 2 online.
Okay.
In fact, I have 3 online. I have a 2nd, a 6th, and a 7th online. But
Okay.
I only have 1 live.
Yeah, the onlines are adding a real addition. I realized like 30% of my final tables in WSOP are also online now, which is crazy.
Didn't you make one in like the Pennsylvania online?
Yeah, I got third in the PA championship.
Yeah.
Which I would have felt pretty dirty if that was my first bracelet.
I say like that one.
It was like an 80-man field.
I was gonna say,
Like a half a bracelet.
Honestly, though, like, fuck that. Like, everybody who's counting their mixed game bracelets, why wouldn't that one count? It's a single day 80-man no limit event. Like,
yeah, but you know, it's like it's Pennsylvania poker, man.
yeah, well, it's mixed games, man. There's only 60 people in the world who play them. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
30 of them are decent at the
What are we
game.
looking at?
Oh my
There's a
They
question.
are tough fields.
What odds would it take to get you to do a bracelet bet, but you're only allowed to play mixed games?
Oh my god, very high, because it would be extremely expensive for me. Like, just knowing that I'm going to lose 100K almost certainly.
Right.
I would have to get like a couple hundred to one.
There's a lot.
You're gonna lose.
Do you think you could play like the 1500 single draw and be winning? Like, or
I don't know, man. I mean, I truly don't know much about it. I think the big bet games, depending on how tough the fields are, I probably could have like, I think I know enough about tournaments and big bet structures to like be break even.
Yeah. Because that was my instinct. I feel like anybody who kind of understands tournaments as a whole and who understands the theory of no limit could probably play single draw and like the big bet PLO games like PLO 8 and stuff and probably not be like disastrously bad.
Even triple
Didn't
draw.
Johnny Backs win a like a
Stud bracelet.
Yeah.
Like it was like he never played the game or something like that.
Right.
Just got in there and won it.
I think it's a lie though. He's an old East Coast guy, man.
Yeah,
he probably
yeah.
almost
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
played stud at some point.
Yeah, I would actually bet that you are probably not, if not winning in the 1500 mixed games, like very close to.
Yeah, maybe. I
I
don't know.
would bet. I'd be confident in bet on it.
I would. The problem is like even if theoretically like I had a win rate, I would mind fuck myself to not having a win rate. Like I think about something as simple as dealer's choice and knowing that like the game that you choose actually does matter.
Yeah.
I would spend all of my energy trying to figure out like what game I'm supposed to choose when I'm the button, and it would just be so meaningless at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a super interesting concept to me, but I don't even know like a third of the games to the point where I could play them enough to even play the 1500 dealer's choice.
I wonder if they'll add double board bomb pots to the dealer's choice this year.
Ooh,
That'd be great.
that sounds.
I would
awesome.
doubt it just because if you're playing like 8-handed or whatever, it's probably really hard to have enough cards to do double board.
They do it every day in Texas. Every dealer
Oh,
change.
no, so you're not thinking PLO. Sorry, yeah.
No, but even if you were,
Hold'em.
I think exactly 8-handed can do double board.
Okay, exactly 8. Okay.
But yeah,
I guess you can.
I don't like double board PLO bomb pots to be honest. May as well just play PLO 8.
Have you ever played a PLO bracelet event?
No,
Really?
Not even PLO?
Really?
I actually haven't either.
I've never really grinded a full schedule outside of a couple of years. Like once I really had found a lot of success, both in high stakes cash and at the WSOP, like 2015-ish. I was like, okay, I'm putting in a full schedule this summer because I wasn't really getting seats in Ivy's room. I was like, I'm playing a full schedule, and it was the only summer I bricked.
Yeah.
I went like 0 for 48.
Wow.
And I was like, never again, never again.
What do you think your ratio of cash to tournaments will be this summer?
70-30 probably.
Cash.
Yeah. Unless like seats just vanish and I don't have really any access, but I think people want to gamble with me now.
Do you think that the challenge has improved your chances of getting seats or made it worse?
I think improved.
Okay.
Because like, yeah, I mean, look, I don't think anybody over the past 10 years has doubted whether or not like I take the game seriously. But I think that, game runners just recognize that I offer some sort of value to the environment. I give a lot of action. It's like, if I'm going to play a bunch of hands and I'm going to put in a bunch of money after the flop, like that's kind of a good thing for most players.
Sure.
They want to be able to kind of like sit back, play a little bit tighter, and know that they can have a big score when they flop a set. And I'm the guy that will give them the big score. So it's kind of like, it's a give and take.
They know you have money now as well.
Yeah, it's true.
For a little context, this is what we should be expecting from Connie this year.
Dude, that's all right.
Oh, no.
We love
my
ourselves
God,
here.
look!
What are we looking at?
Oh my
Here he
God.
comes. It's like the Undertaker. It's like the Undertaker.
Call off the search. Call off the search. Call off the search. Here he comes.
I don't like this.
This is unbelievable. He's got a shot with him.
I think that's water, bro.
I don't know. It looks pretty. Doesn't look like water. It looks like seawater, maybe.
What is poppin', everybody, and welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, I'm here with my only friends.
He sounds so down bad right now. He sounds like a cry for help.
Listen, he made it. He's here. What up, Conrad? What's poppin', baby?
Yo, my fucking head hurts. I lost the car keys last night, guys.
You didn't.
You didn't.
You never had the
You
car.
never had your car.
Look at his face right now.
You gave in your drunken stupor. You gave the keys to Henry, and he brought the car back home.
I am a fucking genius.
You're so smart, dude.
Wait, when did I find Henry?
Huh? Like 10. This is like 10:30.
Bro.
In the chat that you gave your keys to him.
Maybe he's the one
and
with
then
the
at
illness.
4 in the morning,
You
said,
look
"I
like
lost the
you
keys."
look like you're trying out for an extra in Passion of the Christ.
You don't look good, cuz.
Oh man. Landon wanted nothing to do with turning towards you and smelling the stench coming off of your body.
I probably fucking stunk like alcohol.
Yeah, that's what you
Straight
stunk
tequila.
like. Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to do the podcast on site. I thought it was a good idea, but I don't think it would work the same way that it did at the Bahamas.
Probably not.
There's no way that like we could have it out on the floor and keep all the stuff protected, and just doing it from a room there seems meaningless.
Chauncey is absolutely going to destroy those headphones.
He loves it, man. Nobody loves it more than Sean.
He's going to ruin this podcast.
Oh, he's biting nicer now.
We love him.
He's
told him
biting
to-
nicer.
You told
Yeah,
him to
he
not
used to
fuck you
just
up.
like rip into me. Now he's just like gently nibbling.
Okay, well, he ripped into me the other day, so hopefully next time
Well,
he
that's where
bites
it
me.
starts.
Yeah.
You got to get him on your good side. What the fuck were we talking about before we got on Conrad?
WSOP planning. We were talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about planning for WSOP. We're talking about tournament strategy. All this stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
Let's start from the beginning, and maybe get a wily vet like Conrad to chime in. First and foremost, when it comes to WSOP, obviously everybody has to put their schedule together.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you clue us in, buddy? What does that process look like?
Well, you got to clean your schedule for the 30 days before WSOP.
Okay.
That's what I recently learned last year.
And-
Because, you don't want to go to the fucking shit lodge and all these other places right before WSOP.
Okay.
So you just relax, you chill. And then when May 29th comes, you go to the Horseshoe every day for 47 days, I think.
Okay.
And there you go.
Whatever's on the schedule that day, you just play.
You got to show up and rock, baby.
Okay. So
That's the thing. He doesn't have to put a schedule together when he's playing everything. The schedule is out there.
Conrad's schedule is everything.
When WSOP put out the actual schedule, that's his schedule.
Including like the 100K high roll.
Yeah, right.
I heard,
Mine was a couple.
I heard they were running fucking satellites all summer long. So
Here we go.
Are they doing milestone
95
stats now?
events. 95 events. You're playing them all.
I skipped some 10Ks, but other than that,
Are they doing milestone stats now instead of regular? or
I don't
just-
know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
My God, if they are, I'll be the happiest
I
person.
don't think so. They got rid of the single table satellites as well.
Yeah, but like milestone is just. I played some in Bahamas. It's so much better.
It is,
Yeah.
insane how much better it is than regular satellites.
dude. It is so fucking cool to like be an hour and a half in, and you are the only one walking away from the fucking table.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, 10,000, thank you. See you guys later.
It's really great. Like I at this point, like I would never ever play a regular live satellite because they are the most boring way to spend time. It's just playing correct is just playing insanely tight. But like the milestone satellites, I will happily play because they're much more like normal tournaments.
I would play every single one of them. I love them.
It seems like there's a lot more available edge in the milestone tournaments as well.
For sure, yeah.
The regular satellite strategy, it's not that there is no edge and nothing to consider, but if you start with the premise that tight is right and making absurd folds is a good thing, you're doing pretty okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that difficult for rec players to recognize that folding a lot is good, right? Like but the milestones are totally different because you've got this weird element where the value of chips goes exponentially up as you get closer and closer to the milestone, and then every chip above the milestone is worth absolutely nothing.
Right.
So if you have like a situation where you have a flip where, like, let's say the milestone is 200K, you have 150K, someone puts in 100K, and you have like ace king, and you're thinking about calling it off. Well, normally it would be a call, but you have to factor in the fact that only 50K of those chips you can actually win. You
Right.
can't
You're
win
risking 100 to
like
win
you're getting
50.
a different effective price.
Right.
And so I had a hand in a Milestone satellite where I got close to the Milestone in PCA, and I like had ace king and the flop came like king high, and then I bet flop and got called, and I realized that winning that pot just as it was would take me over the Milestone. And so it was like the board came out blank and I just like checked down.
Yeah.
Because winning more chips had literally no value.
Right.
And losing chips would like there's like a downside, but there's no upside. So it's such an interesting thing in Milestone sats. I really enjoy it. It's a good format.
It's so much fun, man. It's just like there's this. You're not getting rewarded for not playing hands, and that's what I love about it. Like you get rewarded.
We don't want to reward nits.
Yes.
Like we should not reward nits.
Easy.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that with you sitting right next to me.
Somebody wrote.
Got you?
That is.
Oh my God, he tried to climb me.
That is your punishment for saying that he was going to be nicer.
Oh man. Oh my God, I'm bleeding.
Somebody went on this long rant about how you should switch your game up if everybody thinks you're so tight.
About me?
Yeah, they
Someone on
posted
Twitter was
on
like,
Twitter?
everybody thinks you're so tight, you should just play like super aggro. Like,
Nah, don't ever change.
You know what
bro.
I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play correct.
That's
wow.
Yeah, I'm going to play correct.
You're gonna play so much looser now.
Yeah, exactly. Which is looser. Yeah. I when I posted my my package, someone just said the min cash guy. I'll pass.
Oh man, you big Kessler.
you're really gonna develop a reputation of.
Well, you
being
know
like
what? I
Kessler
sold out
Jr.
in 24 hours. So
Yeah.
So
Good
you
for
know.
you, man.
Congratulations.
Let's
Thanks,
go.
man.
Next,
So let's talk about
His
that a little
loss.
bit with regards to schedules, satellites, selling, all that other stuff. For people that aren't Conrad, who apparently just YOLO off $500,000, what does the process of building a package look like? How do you weigh in playing WSOP events versus non-WSOP events? Is it just an average buy-in type of consideration? Do you factor in that you might want to play some bigger events so you work in satellites? Like, how are you guys managing developing these schedules, keeping the price point at a comfortable level, let's say, and then determining which venue you're choosing from a value side?
I think it's a really good question. I think that for me, it always starts with prioritizing. It always starts with just looking at what's available and saying there are certain things that are enough value that I really have to make sure that I can play these, or that I have to build a schedule around these events. And then there are always so many other things that are available that you can fill up the rest of the time as you need with whatever is available. Once you've established, like, these are the priority events, these are the, like, this is the amount that I'm going to, the amount of my bankroll that I'm going to dedicate, this is the action that I'm going to sell. Like, if you have a clear idea of what the most important events are, it's not that difficult to be flexible with the other stuff. But
I think that's
you have
really
to
easy
start
though
with-
for people that are playing higher average buy-ins or mixed games, right? Because you're just going to play the series. So
Yeah.
like for someone like me, I don't even look at what the Venetian or Wynn are running unless they're doing like, it needs to be like a 7-figure guarantee plus.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Even like $1 million guarantee, I'm not even going to be
it
considering.
kind of goes just like bracelet events first, and then
For you, maybe.
for most people,
No, when you start that's why I'm kind of posing the question. When you have an average buy-in of 1K, right? Are you just building out your schedule WSOP first and foremost with priority?
Same. Yeah. That's what I did.
think a lot of people
That's what
do.
I did because
I think a lot of people do. I don't necessarily think it's the highest EV way to do it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people do it that way.
I
And
think-
I think a lot of it comes down to people not recognizing that there are events outside of WSOP that are better value than some of the WSOP events. I think people
like for-
assume WSOP is best value.
example.
Like the 1600 MSPTs at Venetian. Like
Okay.
the ones that get like 3,000, 3,500 runners, something like that. Like if there was one of those on the same day as like a 1,500 6 max bracelet event, I would pick Venetian. Because
Personally,
So
if my ABI was 1K, I would play very few WSOP events.
you just play the 600 double stack.
I
You
would
play
I would be playing Venetian and Wynn almost every single day, because I would want to increase the volume for the amount of money that if I was allocating 30,000 to the series, and I wanted to play an ABI of 1K, that's 30 events, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to fill that entire schedule through the Wynn and Venetian. And then
But you can also do that through that's what I did. I did that through WSOP. Right. So like my average buy-in is probably somewhere around $800 or $900.
No, your average cost is around $800. Your average buy-in on your schedule is going to be significantly higher, right? Because you're not playing that many events that are 1K and under.
Yeah, I am. I'm playing 4 bullets of a 300, an 800, a 500, a 600, a 400, a 777, and a 600.
Okay, what about everything else?
I have a 1K. I have 2 bullets into the Monster Stack, which is 1,500. 2 bullets in the Millionaire, which is 1,500. The Mini Main, which is 1,000. The Closer, which is 1,500, and then the Super Turbo at the end of the year, which is 1,000.
I think you're kind of just kind of looking past all the smaller events.
Yeah, there are
There's
a lot
of
of smaller events at WSOP, which I think will be the softest fields. They will probably be the biggest fields and the softest fields. So that's why, like, when I was looking at it, I thought that like the most of the value was for my price point was at the WSOP, and it seems very, very simple, but I played everything that has a name. No, because it's serious.
I
Right. So it's like the $1 Million Mystery Bounty, the Gladiator, the Monster Stack, the Millionaire Maker, the Colossus, the Lucky Sevens, right? Those are all like going to be, huge fields, huge prize pools, huge first places, and relatively low buy-ins.
But you're also playing recreationally, so you're playing like a dozen tournaments tops.
I'm playing 13 tournaments, 26 bullets.
Yeah, so the number of bullets don't matter really at all.
I mean, I don't know. That's not necessarily true. It's almost like playing. It's just another tournament. You know what I mean?
Sort of.
I mean, you might not play those bullets because if you make it on the first bullet, then.
Right, of course, but the whole point is that like you would play multiple bullets no matter how you filled out your schedule. So if like my point is that you're playing recreationally, if somebody who's grinding the 47 days is going to, if you're talking bullets, is going to be playing 50 to 80.
Right.
If you're talking like
Conrad did.
Yeah, if you're talking entries or events, they should be targeting somewhere in the 30 plus range.
Okay.
Right. So. Sure, you're able to add in marquee WSOP events, and I agree with that. But if you were trying to fill out your schedule, you would have 27 other events 17 other events probably.
Yeah. So you're right. So like, I guess if this schedule was going to be doubled or tripled, there would be Venetians, there would be Wins in there.
Right.
And I think you start with this and then you expand out.
I think also the thing that's noteworthy these days is that the Venetian and Win events that are not the huge field MSPTs and the huge field like 3 million guarantees and stuff like that, they actually tend to be quite reg heavy because
everybody busted.
Right. No, that's literally it. It's like if a WSOP event happens on the same day, people will play the WSOP, they'll bust, they'll go over to Win, and then they'll play the Win. So like, I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that if you were to look at the same buy-in level at WSOP versus the other venues, I think the other venues are slightly less soft.
Yeah.
And so
I agree.
When I'm considering WSOP versus the other venues, the only time I will pick the other venues ahead of WSOP is if the field size is big enough.
You're saying dollar for dollar, right? Or are you saying that like a 600 at Venetian the same day that a 1500 at the WSOP runs?
I'm talking about in terms of like ROI. So like, if I mean, I'm not going to choose a 600 over a 1500, but if there's two 1500s, one at Venetian and one at.
But I'm saying that like people with a lower average buy-in should choose the 600 over 1500 a lot.
So you're basically saying people at a lower average buy-in.
If I were like a 2.5 reg that was shot taking MTTs, or if I was an ABI of like 500 to 1K, something like that, I would want to fill the bulk of my volume with events that were at or below that price point.
Oh, so you would just play lower buy-ins.
Because
I totally get what you mean now. Yeah.
So funny enough, I'm actually looking at the Win schedule right now. It's about 1,100 average. Yeah, it's not a little bit more.
I think the Win upped their price point this year.
This is another thing that I was going to say that I think these days I think you'd probably be surprised how much the average price point of all events in Vegas has like risen in the last few years. And it's not just inflation. I think like places like Planet Hollywood used to have a series where they had mostly like $200 to $500 buy-ins. Golden Nugget used to have a lot more in that region. I think a lot of the places that ran those levels of buy-ins are not running as many events as they used to.
I think Nugget is.
Nugget still is?
Yeah, Nugget still is.
But maybe not as big of a series though, right? Like, I don't know.
I want to say they put out a decent schedule.
they did?
Okay.
They put out a
I
decent
want to say they put out a decent schedule.
They have. I think they have a 1 million. Is it a 1 million 1K? They're main.
It might just be Planet
like
Hollywood that I'm thinking of then, because the Planet Hollywood series doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Right. That's the
and
first
then
time I ever played with you was in a Planet Hollywood.
Yeah, I remember.
I didn't know. I had no idea who
That's
you were.
funny,
We
yeah,
just
we
sitting
didn't
at
know
the
each
table.
other. That's
Just to give you a quick idea of their marquee events at the Wynn, it's going to be like the 1100, 1.5 million, 1600, 2 million, 2200, 2.5 mystery bounty, and there are
Isn't there like a
3500, 4 million, and a 1600, 2 million.
And then there's the
10K.
the WPT 10K with like insane.
The one drop.
Yeah, the one
Yeah,
drop
10 million guaranteed.
I didn't even realize that.
Nobody did. They've been
Holy
doing a very
fuck.
poor job of
They
advertising.
have been doing a poor job.
Oh
but
my God, that's huge.
It's going to be amazing.
They have a couple sick. Oh, they have Milestone satellites for it too.
Oh, there we go.
Hey guys, we've had a few questions in chat asking about milestones. Can we briefly describe what that is and how that works? The milestone satellites.
Sure, yeah. The Milestone satellite is basically a satellite where instead of the top X% of players making the money and getting a seat, you win a seat automatically if you reach a certain number of chips.
Usually
So-
10x.
It's
yeah,
usually 10x.
It's usually 10x, or occasionally it'll be like 12x the starting stack. So it basically just means that you're incentivized to accumulate chips as opposed to just waiting everybody else out.
So if you start with 10K starting stack, you get it up to, say it's a 10X, 100K, you get a seat.
Yeah, exactly. So
You get 99, you go back down to 0, you're fucked.
It plays a lot more like a regular tournament, except there are other interesting.
How does
what will
how does the
happen
Wynn handle it whenever you go over? Do they just put those chips back in play?
Different places have different rules.
In
So
PCA,
Yeah.
they spread it out the table.
yeah. So at PCA, the PokerStars way of doing it was to take whatever chips are surplus on top of the milestone. So if the milestone is 100 and you get to 150 because you win a big pot, they take that 50K and they split it between your table. At the Wynn, they just take all your chips out of play, and the way that they compensate is to have it so that you can also win a seat by being one of the last X number of players.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
So I think that way is better.
Yeah.
And I spoke to the PokerStars floor in the Bahamas and said, like, this is how they do it at the Wynn. And he was like, oh, that is better. So I think PokerStars might change it. So I think the standard way of doing it is going to be you can either reach the milestone or be in the last X number of players.
So that's how I thought they all were. I didn't
They're
realize
not
because
all that way.
I played one at the
Bahamas,
Wynn. I actually bubbled. I was the.
shit.
remember we were running the Sims on where I should have
yeah.
shoved that.
But
hand?
yeah, the Bahamas didn't do it that way. In the Bahamas, it was
Right.
like you have to make the milestone, but we do this thing where we take chips.
Yeah.
We distribute chips to the table.
Usually it ends up being maybe like half the people reach the milestone,
Right.
and the other half of, so they're giving away 20 seats or something. 10 people will reach
Yeah.
the milestone, and then the other 10 they'll just get there by being
Right.
the last 10 left. Yeah.
Wait, so whenever you're playing down, what if you reach the milestone while you're in the play down process?
Then you get a seat.
So you still
let's
get
say,
a seat.
Let's say there's
They keep taking the seats out, so it's
Right.
like
No, I understand.
let's say
I
there's
understand.
20. Let's say there's 20 seats to be given.
Yep.
And you get to the point where there's 200 entrants. There's 50 people left, and there's 10 people who've already made the milestone. Now you have 10 seats available. You might get to the point where there's 20 people left and 10 seats available. And eventually either someone's going to bust, someone's going to make the milestone, and a seat is going to disappear, and you're going to get down to like 7 players left and 4 seats available.
Right.
And one way or another,
Yeah.
either the stacks are all going to be super short and everybody's actually
Right.
going to...
I guess what I'm saying is it's never clear when you're just playing for the opt-in.
Right. Never
There's
not just playing
There's
for
no
it.
point where you are just playing a normal satellite.
Right.
You still have the trade-off of like, I could be the last X number of players, or I could make the milestone. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That's why it's good. It's interesting.
It's real interesting. I fucking love those milestone
Yeah.
studies.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see the Wynn doing them.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Wynn made a really good innovation there. I think it's one of those things. It's like the big blind ante. I think it should just become the standard now. There's
Yeah.
no reason for regular satellites to exist because they're just objectively less fun for everybody.
Right.
And I don't think
They're also more resource intensive.
Yeah, exactly.
They take so much more time and resource.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I don't think they attract as many wrecks either.
I'm pretty sure Poker Go Studios are going to start doing these Milestone Saturdays.
I think they already have been. I don't think they've been running them in studio. I think they're running them at Aria.
Okay, because I remember like the last time they had a Poker Open or whatever it was.
Remember the Stairway to Heaven?
Yeah.
I thought that was the first introduction of the Milestone.
No, that wasn't it. Stairway to Heaven was just basically regular tournaments where part of the prize pool was a buy-in to the next level
one.
up, basically.
So they would just take it out
and
of
that's
the buy-in.
kind of why it didn't really like take off that popular, because
Right.
it was like if you want to play the bigger buy-in, you could just win a lower tournament and buy into it, you know, like a satellite crossed with a regular tournament.
Yeah.
I remember last time Poker. I hit somebody up on Twitter asking them if there was a milestone. They said no, but they were looking to do it for the summer. So that's exciting. I like the milestones. I'm excited to see them become a real thing around town.
I think it's going to be really good for the game as a whole. The more we can find ways to take traditional stuff that's not that fun and make it more fun, like it's better for everybody.
Yeah, I'm still kind of hung up on this whole scheduling thing because I feel like it's a difficult task for MTT players because the average buy-in may be consistent with what it always has been, or at least relatively close, but the amount of volume available is so much greater than it's ever been. When I played when I sold my first big package, it was 27 events in 2013, and it was I think it was a 38K package. And that was for every WSOP event under 5K plus the main. So it was only 28K of events over, call it 26 events, something like that. Sorry, I think that's what my backer owed. I think I owed like 15K of that. So it was like a 50K package, whatever. But that was like basically a full schedule. I was only omitting high quote unquote high stakes stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Where 10K was pretty much the cap of the buy-in. And I ultimately ended up playing all the 5K stuff anyway. Just because I was having success. I look at it now and it's like if you just put together an event of 1K buy-ins and below, just that, like around town, and played, high volume, let's call it 50 events, and made room for re-entry. 2013 there was no re-entry.
Right.
So and you made room for re-entry, you're probably looking at a 100K package.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think you could easily, I was just saying this to the backer that I'm working with right now a while back, like if you wanted to dedicate 200K of buy-ins at like a 3K ABI this summer, you easily could. There's so much stuff out there.
I think I played 14 events last year and I was somewhere around 125K in buy-ins.
Yeah. Like you could easily just
50 of that came in one tournament.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, like you could easily put in almost $250,000, like even without playing the 25Ks or anything like that, because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Right.
So it is certainly, when it comes to prioritizing, I think one thing that people lose sight of, I think, is how you actually sort of establish what your EV is in a tournament. And the reality is that in most 1K tournaments, your ROI is going to be pretty similar. But the thing that's going to make the biggest difference is going to be playing 1K tournaments where the field is big enough that the final table has a lot of fish, or the final table is not like all pros, because that's going to mean that at the business end of the tournament, you're going to be able to have a bigger edge.
Right.
And so that's why in prioritizing, it's not so much a question of any one individual buy-in, like any one individual tournament at that buy-in level being that much softer than others. It's just the big fields are more likely to have wrecks at the final table. And when that happens, you are more likely to run into situations where you can achieve a higher ROI because you're not in these situations where everybody at the final tables make really good decisions. So that's why I would prioritize field size during WSOP and look at it in terms of, there's going to be a lot of variance one way or the other. There's not really a lot that you can do to drastically alter that. But if you have a choice of 2 events at the same buy-in level, for the most part, the one with the bigger field is going to be the one where your ROI is actually going to be higher. Yeah. But it's not even going to be that big of a difference, because it might be a question of you having a 25% versus a 20% ROI. And in a 1K buy-in, that's the difference between making $250 playing that tournament and making $200. So it's still, when you're talking about ROIs at 1K buy-ins, $500 buy-ins, you're talking small margins.
Yeah.
So in the end, for me at least, like, I always just look at it as like, it doesn't matter that much what I play, because if I'm playing the lower buy-ins, it's going to be $50 here or there that I'm winning or losing by playing one tournament ahead of another. But if I'm playing higher stakes, if I'm getting to the point where I have to choose, like, am I going to play this 5K tournament or not? Am I going to play this 3K here? That's the stuff where, like, there's a big difference between, like, the softest 5Ks and the toughest 5Ks. And you really have to take into account when you're thinking about shot taking or thinking about playing something that's a little bit higher than your normal buy-ins. You definitely have to consider the specifics of the field size that's likely to happen, like what venue is it at, all that stuff, before you consider actually shot taking. So
yeah, that's where I think, like, the 1500 milli maker or the monster stack are going to be significantly softer than like the 1100 1.5 million guarantee at the Wynn.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I chose to put those on the schedule over the other ones for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there are obviously those instances where a slightly higher buy-in is going to be softer than an equivalent, or than like a buy-in like that's like one rung lower on the ladder, let's say. But I think it's relatively rare these days to find like a substantially higher buy-in that's significantly softer than a lower one. So like, it's hard to find like a 3K that's softer than your average 1K. It's not impossible, because there are some, and certainly like the 25K in Bahamas was softer than probably your average 2K a lot of instances. But like, outside of the exceptions, for the most part, like, there's a pretty reasonable amount of consistency in levels.
So I guess the next thing to discuss, once you've rallied all the troops, have all your funding, and you have a bunch of events on the schedule to play, how much emphasis do you guys put on scheduled day offs versus just taking no time off versus like taking time off whenever you just feel it's necessary?
It's funny, because for me, every time I go into the WSOP, I don't want to take any time off. I'm like, I'm going to play fucking every day. I'm going to play everything. And I'm like that right now. I'm like, I just want to get out there.
And then 2 weeks into it, you're like, I need a break.
Right, exactly. Like the way I do it is I always tend to assume that opportunities to take time off are going to come up, because you're going to have times where, like, you play day 1A of a tournament, you bag, and you don't have anything to do on 1B, right? So like, I account for that a little bit, but I also make sure during the series that I check in with myself and see, like, how am I actually feeling about this event that I'm going to play today? Like, if I am going to go play something and it's not really like a must play event, it's not really like that important of an event, and I'm feeling like I'm just like not really very up for it, I will just take a day off spontaneously, because I think it's really, really hard to actually play your best when you are not very intrinsically motivated at that time to actually go play poker. Like, if you'd rather be doing something else, probably not going to play very well. So I try to factor that in as much as I can.
Yeah, for me, it's like, I go in, like, I want to play. Like, I love this shit. Like, I want to play every day. And, like, I don't feel like I want to plan to take days off, because, you know, it might not be the right time or something. Like you said, you might make day 2 and there's might be something that you can play on 1B, but you decide not to.
Right. And
because
sometimes it goes the inverse way too, where you have a day where you've planned a day off, but you're like, I really want to play today. Right. Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, you just kind of just show up and just see how you feel daily, and just understand, like, go by it that way.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think that's counter to how people used to approach it. I think, like, the idea of like planning days off was like part of the advice, where it's like, hey, it's a long grind, make sure you take time to enjoy your summer and take a little time off. I very much am of the mindset, not just with the WSOP or anything else, but just life in general, of life will provide you off days. You don't ever really need to plan for them unless, you know, it's with a purpose, like a vacation or something like that. So I very much am behind the idea of just let the schedule naturally dictate when you have downtime. I also think there's something to be said about being a little bit resilient during this time.
Sure, yeah.
You're going to feel burnout. You're going to feel tired. You need to kind of, like, if you want to have a go at this where you're doing it seriously, I think it's really important to have some sort of like preparation and fail safes in place for you to be able to handle those lower moments and push through.
Sure. Yeah. There's definitely, I think, something to be said for if you regularly find yourself in a mentality where like you you run bad for like a week and then suddenly you just don't want to play after that. Like that's a deeper mental game issue. You know, I think there's like a healthy balance of getting yourself into a mindset day after day of like, I'm not going to just let a couple of bad beats like put me on the mat for a week. But there's also like this thing of like, if you do start to feel like maybe you're just like physically fatigued because you're playing long hours or something like that, that obviously takes its toll, you know? And, and there's like there's a balance that you have to strike. And the more experience you build up, the more you start to understand where your personal thresholds are and what the methods are that are going to get you back to being motivated when you don't feel like it. And also what are the methods that when I'm feeling like I just want to get out there and play, but you know, maybe I have other things that are on my mind or something like that. How am I going to like stay focused and all those sorts of things? So you just kind of get used to it over time, I think.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to kind of shine a light on is that oftentimes when people decide that they're burnout or just can't do it another day, need some time to themselves, whatever, it's always very convenient. It's like a time where it's a day. It's never a day 2 or day 3.
Yeah.
You know, it's never midway through day 1 when they have chips that they just suddenly have this sinking feeling of like, God, I don't want to be here anymore.
But this is all adrenaline rush time, though, is what you're saying.
Not really.
Day 2, day 3, like, you're feeling
it's
man.
more so that there's just more of an onus to what's going on because you have more hope.
Okay.
Right? Like you feel like you have more responsibility to the moment.
Yeah.
Because you are on a day 2 and you're close to the money or you're in the money, or because you do have chips in front of you that isn't a starting stack. Therefore, like you have to really lock in and not focus. The truth of the matter is those are probably the times where we disengage the most, where like if you truly are burned out, it's going to shine in those exact spots, not whenever you reg a 1K monster stack that you don't really want to be there for.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot to be said for making sure that you can be at your best at the times when it actually matters.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why I've always been a reasonably big proponent, especially during these like peak periods where you're playing a lot of late regging stuff, because not only does it give you a couple of extra hours to just sort of whatever else before you actually play, but you are sharper towards the end of the day when everybody else has been playing for longer hours. And over the course of 47 days or whatever it is, if you are playing 20% fewer hours than other people, but you're still having access to the same spots because you're just late regging everything 2 hours later, they're playing 10-hour days and you're playing 8-hour days. Like that over the course of 47 days matters a lot, especially in comparison to the extremely small downside of missing the first couple of hours of a day's play.
Yeah, that was actually my next follow-up, is to discuss late reg a little bit. So you're obviously a big proponent of it. To what degree do you think that there starts to become a fall-off where late regging is actually costing you potential win rate?
I think that we're still at a point where we don't fully know a lot of the math of late reg, because we do know that what's happening is you're buying a stack for less than what its ICM value is, right? So as soon as one person busts the tournament, the ICM value of every stack in that event is slightly greater than what it is than what the buy-in is. So theoretically, you're making money as soon as you late reg. But what we can't evaluate is how much do you lose by not being in the event for that first period of time, and how many chips could you theoretically accumulate? What effect does it have? And
isn't it also like a two-way street? Like, yes, you're theoretically making money in the sense that your chips are worth more, but isn't it also kind of the theoretical opportunity to cash in on that money is a bit diluted because you just don't make it as far?
Well, this is the unknown variable there is what's the difference in how far you make it on average when you buy in with 30 bigs compared to with 200.
Right.
So like, that's what we can't calculate because we don't have a big enough sample of data. But I think the thing that I have noticed over a lot of the online data work that I've seen and things like that is that late regging, particularly like max late regging with a short stack, it's not that it necessarily decreases your ROI that much or anything like that, but what it does is it makes everything much more volatile. So you're in a position where fate in that event is tied to whether or not you win that first flip, you know? And so you're subject to a much higher standard deviation in your results when you late reg. When you are early regging, you are more likely to be able to accumulate more chips because you're in that you're in the tournament when all the weakest players in the tournament are still there. You're playing deep stacked. You have a huge win rate in those early levels if you're playing well. And so even though you are in order to achieve that win rate, you have to expose yourself to some risk of busting early on. Like you can't have a win rate with no chance of busting. Like you can't just like have both those things at once. The gray area that we don't have the ability to really solve yet is if you have X win rate in the early levels, what's actually better to play those levels, possibly bust, but have a certain expected stack when you get to, let's say, level 6 or something, or late reg at level 6 with a specific stack that is shallower, but you can't bust in the first 5 levels because you weren't even there.
Right. It's really a matter of determining what your win rate is through those first 6 levels.
That's hard to do, right? Especially
right.
in live events where you don't have a lot of data.
Exactly. And the other part of it is like that aspect that I mentioned where you can't have a high win rate without being willing to take spots that require you to sometimes bust. You know what I mean? Like you can't just be like, I'm going to have a crushing win rate in the early levels, but I'm also going to refuse to get it all in without aces.
Right.
Like that doesn't work.
Right.
So it's what we don't know is the trade-off of being exposed to the risk of busting early versus the trade-off of not having the opportunity to accumulate a stack early. We don't know yet whether late reg is better than early reg, but for the purposes of keeping yourself fresh, if we assume that late reg and early reg are relatively equal in value,
then you gain the the advantage.
You being fresh and you being you playing better when you get later in the event, later in day one, closer to the bubble, etc. That certainly has a value to it. We know that playing better obviously has more value. So like the way I've always looked at it is it doesn't really matter that much whether you late reg or early reg something, except for maybe an event that has crazy deep stacks when you're early and is super soft. But
even those tend to be faster structure and it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. A lot of the time with those events, like you might be playing 500 big blinds level 1, but then by the time you get to level 3, you're playing 100 big blinds again. You know, so like it just doesn't even change that much. So in the end, the way I look at it is like it really doesn't matter that much whether you late reg. Like it's all just about what allows you to actually play your best. And if you are a good short stack player and you show up and late reg with 20 bigs, like you're still going to be able to make money in that event because how you play once you actually make it deep is going to have a much bigger impact than what happens in the early stages. Yeah. But if you are a cash game player and you're not that great at shallow stacks and you don't really know how to like really maneuver a 15, 20, 25 big blind stack really, really well, you should definitely not late reg because your biggest edge as a cash game player is going to be the opportunity to actually play deep stack poker early on and hopefully win big pots. So like there are some players who would be much better off not late regging, but for the most part, I think for the average player, I don't think it actually matters that much.
You hear that, Burke? You got to show up right on time for every event.
No.
Yep. Right on time. 10 a.m., Burke.
He knows how to play tournaments. He knows how to play 20 bigs. He likes to pretend.
No, but he's a cash game player. Let's get it. Not get it twisted.
It's funny because like I have a pretty good idea how to play those in between stacks of like 10 to 40 bigs or whatever, but they make me so anxious. It's like really hard to not like even just thinking about it now, like, okay, we're on day 3. This really matters. There's 25 people left. I have 40 bigs. That's average stack. Just starting to think about like the weight of every decision that you make pre and how much that matters, where I'm used to playing in an environment where like what you do pre-flop is so minuscule compared to like what you do on turn and river. That's like where all of the win rate is being exchanged really is when the pot is large and you know you've had this exchange of bets and calls and raises and whatnot. That's just not happening in MTTs.
Yeah, right.
So like the
if you
things
miss
I'm
a shove
best
spot, it's like huge.
Right. You know what's funny is I have the inverse. I have the inverse feeling in terms of spots that generate anxiety for me. Like if I'm deep in a tournament, like I have enough understanding of how tournaments work that I never feel like I lack confidence in what I'm supposed to do in a certain situation. But if let's say we're playing poker out loud, or if I'm in some kind of situation, even honestly in the early levels of tournaments sometimes, some situation where the pot gets wildly inflated unexpectedly, and the ranges are, starting to get tighter, and maybe it's like a river bluff spot where my opponent is either going to like drastically overfold and I should always bluff, or maybe like they're just drastically underfolding and I should never bluff. Anxiety comes up for me in those spots because it's like, this is such a rare situation that now I'm recognizing that I don't know this spot very well.
Right.
So I wonder if maybe it's just a question of when you get into those tournament spots, because you are less experienced as a tournament player compared to cash, you start to feel like you don't trust yourself as much, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely don't trust myself because I'm hyper aware now that like the strategy is out there and a lot of people know it. Whereas 10 years ago, we were all just kind of feeling our way through, and it's like you could go post and get people to make errors. You could jam a little too wide and get people to fold a little too tight. There was just
That's
like a
still
lot of
happening.
errors. Yeah, it's still happening,
not
but
to
like,
the same. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I think there are still a lot of good MTT players who make a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
I think that.
Sure.
I don't necessarily want to say like any examples of people that I think that are not as good as they seem, but like I think that there's a perception among tournament regs that we have, like, that we know what's good in tournaments in like the later stages, that I think a lot of people have some like false assumptions about, I think. And a lot of it has to do with just the efficacy of ICM as a model, and some people having a bit too much faith in that model versus having too much faith in chip EV. But I think that we are still at the point where what the right decision is in certain specific tournament spots late game is still not really that well known. And I think there are probably plenty of spots where you could ask 2 elite level players about a spot and they would still have different opinions tournaments wise these days. I think with cash games, that's virtually never true now, because I think
it's all chip EV.
Like I think we know now with cash games, like if you ask 2 elite cash players about a certain spot, they're almost invariably going to say it's this is the right play in this spot. And I think with tournaments, you get some spots at least that come up now where there is some uncertainty or some like debate, I guess, about what's the best way for us to actually decide. You
kind of get like a clearer answer, right, when you're talking about a cash spot, just a strictly chip EV spot. But then when you have to add in the ICM and like how much does the ICM matter in this exact spot with this part of the tournament, and then people are debating that. So if you don't have that correct, then you can't get the correct
it. It's like you can
answer.
You can run a sim through a solver. You can run a spot through a solver, and you can do a chip EV version of it and then an ICM version of it, and you can get 2 objective results. You get 2 sim outputs that say, based on this mathematical model, this is the right answer for this spot. But those 2 mathematical models are both flawed when it comes to their ability to actually encapsulate all the variables of a tournament. ICM has a lot of flaws, chip EV has a lot of flaws. We don't have any other model that can do better than both of them. So what you think is the best play in a given spot depends on what math model you're using to establish what the best play is. And eventually, hopefully, someone will come up with some kind of model that can take into account all of the different possible models that we could use. But there are academic papers being made, various platforms and things like that, about new ways to encapsulate or to define the value of a stack in a tournament. We're still researching like what's the best way to look at this. And
all the sims are wrong.
Yeah, precisely.
All the sims are wrong.
No matter what sims you're using, someone can have the ability to come along and say that's wrong, because not only are your opponents making a lot of mistakes, but there's no one singular mathematical model of tournament. ICM is probably the closest that we have, but it still has flaws.
I think the other big issue that you run into is that the models themselves are predicated upon the models that your opposition are using, right? So if it's not a uniform model being applied by the field, then the models that we have are flawed enough that they begin to break down as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you reach a point where it's like, how do you account for the possibility of like, okay, well, I'm like 70% confident that my opponent is playing an ICM-based strategy, but I'm 30% confident that they might still be playing chip EV.
Right.
Like, how do I build a strategy that's 70% ICM, 30% chip EV? You have to like ballpark it and adjust a little bit. But it's incredibly difficult to take into account all these things when building a strategy in real time in the later stages of a tournament. And this is, I think, why there are still, even when we have a really good understanding of what, how certain stack sizes are supposed to play chip EV wise, like there are a lot of variables in tournaments that still, like, we can't fully solve. I find that really cool. I enjoy that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think from my vantage point, it's like the better I get at cash game strategies, and like, I think for a long time I felt myself to be very confident on the outer edges and kind of like always working my way in to being more mechanically sound. And even now, the more that I study, the more I gravitate away from like having the full breadth of strategy just like programmed into my mind. Like, I don't really have an interest in just diving into 100 big blind fixed stacks and learning like everything there is to learn about that, because that's just not the game. That's not the way it plays out, right? But the more general strategy that I consume and have a general overview of like, okay, these are where we're going to use hyper aggressive strategies, these are going to be where we use defensive strategies and things of that nature, and this is how we'll navigate different flops based off of these formations. It becomes very easy for me to slow the game down and just run through that model when I'm thinking, right? And just say like, okay, well, what makes logical sense here? At least I have a framework to build off of, right? Yeah. And I'll come close. What becomes challenging in MTTs is it just doesn't directly apply. So much of the game is built into pre-flop, and the strategies are so wildly different based off of the effective stacks that you're operating in any given moment. And so I personally am just so flawed pre that I'm trying to figure out ways to manufacture getting to post in a meaningful way where we're not just at like sub 1 SPR. And it's tricky. It's like, I might have to bring the limp back, man. This might be the summer. This might be the summer where I just don't open anymore.
Well, I'll tell you though, ICM doesn't like limping.
I don't give a fuck about ICM, man.
He's rich now. ICM is for poor people.
That's right, for poor people.
Who was it who said that? Someone said that.
Probably me.
ICM is for poor people.
Probably me.
I don't think you would have phrased it that way.
Honestly, I truly might just be the test case for how broken the ICM model is, and I might just be in there as passive as possible.
Well, the funny thing is, there's a great video that was put out by GTO Wizard. Shout out to Tom Bossoff, my head coach at GTO Wizard that I make videos for. He made a great video where they basically simulated MTTs using a custom code, and they ran an ICM strategy versus a chip EV strategy. And they sort of established that it's completely accurate that a chip EV strategy does win more often than an ICM strategy. A chip EV strategy wins the tournament at a much higher rate. But it gets crushed in terms of ROI.
Yeah, I watched that video. It's really good.
It's a really, really good video. They ran this sim where like the perfect ICM strategy, playing ICM from hand 1, was winning at like a 3% ROI, and then the chip EV strategy was losing at like a 12% ROI. So like the chip EV was getting absolutely crushed by the players playing ICM, and the only reason why the ICM and the chip EV players performed pretty well in the earlier stages is simply because ICM and chip EV strategies look very similar in the early stages because the risk premiums are really low.
Right.
So in the end, you get to this point where it's not really debatable at this stage that you win tournaments more often if you play chip EV, but you make more money if you play ICM. And that's that's like the debate where
do you want the bracelet or do you want the money?
Yeah, and then there's
well, I guess like practically speaking, all of that entire debate to me is completely moot, because we're not talking about playing an 80-person high roller, right? We're mostly playing open field events with people who don't really even have much of a glimmer of either.
Right.
So from my perspective, it's just like the optimal strategy is Darren Elias. It's just getting in there and understanding.
He's always the optimal strategy.
It's just understanding like where people are incapable of risking and applying a ton of pressure when you're the aggressor, and making like ridiculous laydowns when you're the defensive player.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting thing that this video sort of highlighted is that ICM is a very accurate predictor of finishing positions, even when the rest of the pool is not playing ICM. So even in an event that everybody is playing chip EV, the predicted finishing positions or frequencies of each stack size finishing in what position were still pretty much accurately predicted by the ICM model. So even when the field doesn't have a clue about ICM, simply looking at somebody's stack size is a reasonable predictor of where they're actually going to finish.
That's interesting to me because my immediate thoughts hearing that is not drawing the conclusion then that the ICM model has merit from a strategy standpoint, but more so from a predictive model standpoint, right? Because the factors that go into calculating ICM and coming up, it's basically just giving a dollar worth to your effective stack at the point that it's measured.
Right, but it's doing that by establishing at what frequency you're supposed to finish in what position.
Correct, yeah. I understand that, but my whole point is none of that really considers the strategic aspect.
Oh, yeah.
And if we're looking at both models and saying like, well, if the entire field plays chip EV or the entire field plays ICM, the predictive results are still going to be relatively the same. To me, that means that the ICM model is incredibly accurate or relatively accurate at determining future outcomes.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily confident that, because it's such a dependent model, it's so dependent on the field, I would imagine.
Yeah,
at least.
the fact that it can't account for skill edges,
right,
and it can't account for things like it underestimates the value of having a big stack. Like when you're a chip leader, you outperform ICM. So the things that it can't account for are essentially the fact that the true value of each stack size or the true frequency that you finish in each position from a current stack size is going to be slightly different to what ICM thinks it is. Because let's say you're the chip leader and you have a big edge. ICM is going to assume that you finish first at the same probability of what your chip stack is. So if you have 30% of chips in play, ICM is going to assume you finish first 30% of the time. Now, if you have a really big edge and you're the chip leader, the frequency that you actually finish first is going to be higher.
Sure.
So it's kind of an issue with the scalability of the model or the scalability of an edge, where when your edge gets bigger, the frequency that you finish first goes up and up and up, and that has a proportionally bigger and bigger impact on the ICM value of your stack. So we don't yet have a model that can say, okay, well, if I account for the small frequency that I gain the chip lead and then I have this big edge and then I run good and blah, 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 and we like extrapolate all the way through to the end of the tournament, theoretically my stack is worth more than what it's supposed to be worth. But we don't know exactly how much more, right? Like we don't know if it's worth an extra 1%. We don't know if it's worth an extra 10%. Like we really don't have a clue of exactly how much skill edges account for, particularly in a live environment where you can easily get to a final table where you have just an absolutely massive, massive skill edge. Like people were talking about like when Stephen Chidwick went deep in the main and got like 48th or something. People were like, with 100 players left, it was like, how often does Chidwick win? Right?
Yeah.
And people were trying to do calculations for it and things like that. And, I think the consensus ended up being that like, if it's all random and he has an average stack, he win 1% of the time with 100 left. But if it's Chidwick, maybe he wins 1.5%. He doesn't win 5% of the time. But if it's not the main event, but it's a field where there's 100 players left, Stephen Chidwick's there, and like 70 of the other remaining players are wrecks who have no idea about ICM. Like now, how often does Stephen Chidwick win?
Yeah.
We have no idea. It might be 5%. It might be 2%. But either way,
might be 0.5%.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's unlikely, but like it could be something where he's giving up a lot by being too considerate of ICM.
It could be, yeah. But then when you layer on top of that this idea of exploitative adaptations, right? Like our opponents not just playing chip EV instead of playing ICM, but playing bad chip EV.
Yeah.
Like now, how big is our edge?
Right.
And how do we adapt for that when we're 30 players left or something? Like there's so many unknowns, and I just find it really fascinating to explore these models and try to use them to build new and sometimes really unconventional strategies.
Yeah, it's an endless labyrinth of kind of navigating the never-ending variables, right? Like you just never really get the same. It's wild to think, but like truly, you never really get the same subset twice.
That's why I love it. Yeah, like you literally the same spot doesn't come up twice. And because it'll always be, it'll always be a slightly different context, slightly different stack setups.
Right.
slightly different, post flop considerations,
different phase of the event, different payouts,
and then we still know so little about like post flop ICM and stuff like that. Like, which from the calculations I've run, post flop ICM is absolutely wild. Like, completely changes the game tree in so many ways that are very unpredictable.
Yeah.
So when you start accounting for that, and you like, this is why I made all the sims are wrong. It's like it's the fundamental idea here is there is no sim that can fully capture every variable in a tournament environment. So you just have to be able to brain solve as best you can. And
right.
I just find that so enjoyable as someone who's spent so much time with solvers and to play and put that skill set into practice. Like, that's a really fun challenge for me.
All right, you got me back in.
Yes.
Back in.
Yes.
Book your bracelet bets here. Let me know who wants to lay me a good price.
Let's do it.
Opening number 35-1. That's what I'm looking to get.
This motherfucker offered me 35-1.
You're playing 6 times as many events, Conrad. It gives you a better shot.
I don't play mixed games.
And maybe that doesn't.
Deuce to 7, baby.
What are
it doesn't give you a better
odds
shot.
that Nick Airball plays at WSOP?
Very, very low. Very low. He's not much of a tournament player.
No,
I think he's
Main
played
event,
like once.
maybe
I
main
figured
event.
not.
Yeah, maybe main.
He played the 10K win.
I know, but he said he hated it.
All right.
But he also like big timed and said like he had a 100K side bet and that was the only reason why he cared. Yada yada yada. So I don't know, man. I don't know what motivates people, but I want a bracelet. I'll take all bets. And in order to prepare for this, we have a tournament academy in 2 weeks, May 24th to the 27th. You'll get to hear much more out of Matt as far as ICM considerations versus chip EV strategies. That'll be a 4-day event. Each day will replicate a phase of the event, starting with the early stages on day 1, finishing with final tables on day 4. I think we have 3 seats remaining for that. So if you're interested, hurry up, head over to academy.solveforwhy.io. Click the banner above. You'll get more information, and you can sign up there if you so choose. This has been fun.
Yeah.
This is stoking the fire a little bit in me.
We got you hyped for WSOP. That was my goal coming in.
Yes.
My goal was
Good
to
job, Hunt.
get you to the point where you're excited to go play some tournaments.
I mean, hype for me is 1 pip above neutral.
Well, you just won $1 million. Like, you got way more other things to be hyped about right now. So that's
Again,
fine,
hype for me is like 1 pip above neutral.
I don't know if he told you guys this. When at the end of the challenge, I texted him. I was like, "Congratulations! Like, how are you going to celebrate?" And he was like, I have a cookie that I've been saving for a month. I was like,
Let's
you
go.
just won $1 million and your celebration is to eat a cookie. That's the level of discipline we're dealing
It
with.
was I had a leftover lava cake from a dinner I went on like 2 months ago, and it had just been in the freezer with gelato. And I've been looking for a reason to eat, and I finally did. I have to tell you, it wasn't very good.
It wasn't very good?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's never as good as you think it is.
If
going to be in
I
your
have
head.
a cookie in my house, it's not surviving a month.
Did Danielle send you crumble?
No. I appreciate her for that, actually. And then I immediately went to the gym for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I figured.
Max pain.
What else would you do after eating a cookie, right? You got to punish yourself.
Yeah, it did feel like it felt like winning a tournament. Like I had that high for like 2 hours, and by 7 p.m. everybody's like, "What are we gonna do to celebrate?" I was just like, "I'm gonna take a nap." I mean, I don't know. Like, I just did my job.
You're probably like, I gotta go play Bellagio tomorrow. Like,
yeah, like life moves on. Unfortunately, I will say I'm terrible with this. Like, I think it's really important to celebrate wins both small and large, and I'm one of the absolute worst at this. Like, I'm just not good at giving a lot of acknowledgement for things that I feel like we're supposed to do.
The problem is you don't like to do anything fun. It's hard to celebrate.
My idea of fun and your idea of fun are very different.
Exactly.
What
is your idea?
Yeah, I was
of
gonna
fun?
say at least Brian has an idea of fun.
Exactly.
His idea of fun is just getting drunk and eating food. That's not an activity.
It's an idea of fun.
That's how people celebrate.
That's an idea of fun.
Say you won the main event. What would you do? What would your actual celebration be?
Can I answer?
Sure.
I think it's going to be bone broth and squats.
I think you want crumble.
Why on earth do you ever think that food would be my celebratory?
No, it would be like a pickleball tournament or something like that.
No, it wouldn't.
Crumble.
I do that anyway every day.
What would it be? What's your idea of fun?
I mean, I would want to go I would want to do something like active, like go actively somewhere. If it was, if it's the main event, it's the summer, so it would be like. Yeah, I don't know, like get a house in Tahoe or something like that with a bunch of friends and go boating or
go snowboarding or something.
Yeah, if it's winter time, a snowboarding trip, something along those lines would be fun.
I wouldn't have we're going to like Cambodia or something.
Cambodia.
I'm going to go get a house. I'll black out and we'll grill out.
How did you just pick Cambodia out of a hat? Did you just like spin a globe? And
There's no chance he could identify Cambodia on a map.
Yes, he could.
No shot.
Oh my god.
No, but I know it's close to Indonesia, I think.
Again,
And, like-
I call bullshit that you know where Indonesia is.
No, that's close to India.
It's in the South Pacific.
Yeah. I think I could pick it out. If you put like a empty map in front of me, I think I could pick out most of them.
Okay.
If you know where Vietnam is, you'll be in good shape.
We'll be doing this challenge tomorrow.
Empty map challenge.
And Lamanna will stop giving you clues.
Prop bets.
Not Europe. I can't do Europe for the shit life of me. I don't think.
Europe? It's the only one that you should be able to do. It's
Honestly,
so
I'm
easy.
really bad at Europe.
Europe
There
is
you
not
go, there you go,
monolithic
Conrad.
country.
Where's Cambodia?
What was it that we were on Twitter? It was like, where's Georgie Skulakia from?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
from Georgia.
Is he really from Georgia?
Yeah, he is. That's right.
He is
yeah.
from Georgia.
Look at that.
Not
I guess
the Georgia
right.
in America. The Georgia
No,
in
right.
you know, the former
Oh,
Soviet Union.
I thought I meant the one with the city of Atlanta in it.
Right,
No,
yeah.
I was wrong.
You thought he was from there.
I will admit that I thought I did not know Georgia was like Eastern Europe.
Oh, really?
No, I thought it was like much closer to Middle East.
No,
for
I mean,
whatever
it's
reason.
not like
Well,
there's not that much geographical distance between.
No,
like,
but
the
like
Balkans and the Middle
ethnically
East.
and culturally, it's
Oh,
much
no,
closer
Georgia
to
is,
like.
yeah, it's former Soviet Union.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like in my
exactly.
head, it was like close to Turkey and much
Greece.
more of like
I think you're mixing it up with Albania and Armenia.
possible.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I know those places and I know like but it just in my head for whatever reason, and maybe it is because where it's located on the map. Like in my head, the culture would have been Middle Eastern.
No,
it
definitely
would have been
not,
like
yeah.
an Arabic culture, and it's certainly not.
Yeah. Yeah. Georgie is he like to hear him speak. He made my WPT Prime. He was at the final table with me. I played a bunch of hands with him.
of course he was.
But he yeah, exactly. Final table's everything. But he sounds like the archetypal like Russian type man.
Right.
So I thought he was Russian to begin with, but he was like, no, I'm from Georgia.
I
Makes
knew.
sense.
So I knew. Obviously, I've seen him, so I know like he was from that kind of area. I heard him talk, but I knew he wasn't Russian. I knew he wasn't Ukrainian, but he's in that area. I'm like,
Yeah.
Georgia.
Could be. He's
mean,
absolutely right. He is from Georgia.
Yeah.
Name's Georgie. He's from Georgia.
Listen, Georgie,
Georgie from Georgia.
you got to go through me this summer, buddy. It's over for you.
No, Jeremy Becker. They're gonna play heads up for rolls. Let's go.
Fighting words.
Connie, close out the show.
And on that note, we're the fuck out of here. We'll be back tomorrow. What time are we coming tomorrow? 12?
Yep. Noon.
All right, we'll get it popping at noon tomorrow. Hunt, thanks for joining us as always. Great
man.
talk.
As always.
And, the rest of us, we'll be back here tomorrow to get it popping.
Peace.
Later.
Peace.